Today I wanted to talk about a series that has basically taken over my life for the past month and has been burning a hole in my mind, demanding that I talk about it. Like most things, if I fall super in love with them, I will want to talk about them to someone, anyone, to spread the word. My thing has always been trying to help people find things that they might enjoy, but I try to do it in a way that doesn't spoil them too much. But today's video is for my fellow manga readers and anyone who might stumble upon this video. And before I get started, I want to set the record and let you guys know of some ground rules that I will be giving myself. For starters, as you can see, I'll be showing my face. So there won't be any special editing, maybe a few cuts here or there when I mess up. So if my face jumps around a bit while I'm talking, just ignore it. 2, I know how stubborn anime and manga fans can be about starting things without being spoiled first. It's almost impossible to recommend a story without giving at least a little teaser or showing them a clip of an insane fight from an anime or something. So this video will contain light spoilers, but for you guys' sake, I will be changing up the spoilers so you don't know exactly what to expect, but kind of get the idea. For example, I might say that a character gets hit by a bus, but what actually happens is that they end up crashing a helicopter into someone else, that type of thing. This video is about a book, and even though I will likely say that I read it, I want you guys to know that I actually listened to the audiobook version and will likely aggressively recommend that you do it too. Also, for people who do know me and were expecting a Ranger video, I'm sorry bros. This has been on my mind, eating me up, and I had to get it out. But anyway, that's enough off-topic yapping from me. Let's jump into it. Today I'm recommending a book. Yes, a regular book, not a comic or manga, but a real-life book written by an American author. Crazy, I know. It's called Dungeon Crawler Carl, and it's a litrpg, which stands for literary role-playing game. Basically a story version of games that many of us play, like Persona, The Witcher, Fallout, World of Warcraft, etc. It follows a guy named Carl, a regular dude, and his ex-girlfriend's cat. The story starts off late at night, like 3 a.m. or so, and Carl opens his window in his apartment to smoke a cigarette, and for whatever reason, his cat, Princess Donut, being the asshole that she is, decides to jump out of the window and gets herself stuck in a tree. His apartment is a few floors up, so it's really dangerous for her to be out in a tree, and it's cold outside, and she's meowing up a storm, so he tries to get her to climb back into the window, but now that she's out there, she's scared to jump back in. Carl, afraid that she's gonna fall, he grabs whatever's close to him, any kind of clothing item, and he rushes to stand below her outside to catch her if she, falls or tries to get her to jump. What he ends up dressed up in is a leather jacket, some boxers, and his ex-girlfriend's Crocs that are too small for his feet. While he's outside, standing there, looking like a crazy person at 3 a.m., one of his neighbors opens up her window and yells at him, saying, Carl, shut that damn cat up. And when this happens, his apartment building collapses, crushed, flat, to the ground, flat as paper, and every other structure around him is also flattened. Homes, cars, buildings, etc. Anything that a person can be inside is crushed to the ground, and all that is left is natural life like trees and bushes and stuff like that. His neighbor, the lady who was just yelling at him out the window a moment ago, has been decapitated, and by the collapse of the building, her head is now laying on the ground by his feet. Horrifying. Suddenly, a robotic voice plays in his head, letting him know that the Earth has been taken by the Borant Corporation, and he's been given a choice. The voice tells him that he can stay on the surface and survive as best he can with whoever is left, and good luck. Or he can find a stairwell and go down into a dungeon where he might get a chance to live a longer life if he can survive what lies below. The choice will only be offered once though, and if the person doesn't choose to go down below within a certain time limit, then they will lose their chance forever, and there will never be another communication like this one. The reason for the collapse is that their planet is being mined for resources by aliens, and Carl and anyone left stuck on Earth to fend for themselves until the end of time will just be here by themselves. Now Carl is super lucky. His girlfriend's cat, I guess, she just had a cat-like intuition or something, but it was a blessing for him because he only ended up not crushed like a fucking soda can because his cat was being an asshole and jumped out the window. So, it's a blessing that he came outside to save her because his life didn't get scrunched up like his neighbor and millions of people around the world. So the cat jumped out, into his arms, and they are looking around, and he decides, it's time to find a staircase to climb down into this dungeon. When Carl and Princess Donut, the cat, enter the dungeon, they see that it's nothing like the surface, and they're greeted with achievements and notices popping up in front of them like in a video game with a HUD screen. Carl gets achievements like being the first person to enter a dungeon with a cat, or being the first person to enter a dungeon in just their underwear, and the AI does these achievements. The AI is really silly. It has a funny voice, and it gets really like energetic. It'll be like, new achievement, you are the first idiot to enter the dungeon with a pet. What a guy. Or it'll say stuff like that, and it'll get like really like it's done on purpose. The AI is like purposely like picking at the characters, so it'll say things like new achievement, you know lit a horse on fire or something. I hope it doesn't kick your head off, and it'll just say stuff like that. It's honestly one of my favorite characters in the story, but more on that later. Carl finds out that he's just been forced into a survival game with all of the remaining humans that didn't get crushed in the collapse and must fight, grind, and level up abilities like punching, shooting magic missiles, fireballs, potion crafting, things like that. You know, RPG stuff. Anyone who is a fan of anime like Solo Leveling or Shangri-La Frontier will feel right at home here with the way the abilities and things like leveling up works, but it's not a power fantasy the same way Solo Leveling is. The dungeon is multi-leveled. There's 18 floors, and to survive you must make it down each level before a time limit. The dungeon is spread out over the entire world, and in order to descend you must find a staircase. Each floor follows a different theme, has different storylines tied to it, and less stairwells, as well as time limits to reach the stairs. If you don't make your way down the staircase by the end of the time, then game over. That floor will collapse and anyone on it will die. Like I said, it's a survival game, but it's also a game show, and aliens all over the universe are watching. Dungeon Crawler World is one of the universe's biggest moneymakers and is run by greedy corporations and governments and other factions that are often at war with each other. When Carl makes it to the first floor, he finds out that only about 800 million or so people survived and made their way down into the dungeon, and as time goes on, that number will drop tremendously. To survive, you can't just kill and not die. You have to kill with style. Similar to the Hunger Games, characters in the story can get sponsors who will send them loot boxes to help them do well, and we meet all sorts of other characters and creatures in the dungeon. Being someone that has played World of Warcraft for 10 years or so, this story really hits for me immediately. Like, being familiar with most of the creatures that get named, and I'll say the author will go into great detail with each of them if it's not already a known or established creature. So for a lot of them, if you've never heard of like a gnoll or a dryad, you can just Google these to get a good idea, but they're pretty common in fantasy stories. With the summary out of the way, I also want to talk about the characters and some of the locations. Like I said, the main character is Crawl. Summary out of the way, I also want to talk about some of the characters and locations. Like I said, the main character is Carl. He's a former Coast Guard veteran, and he entered the dungeon with his ex-girlfriend's cat, Donut. We don't know if his ex-girlfriend is alive. I won't spoil anything. But Princess Donut and Carl go down into the dungeon, and you know how cats can be. They're all assholes. She doesn't listen to him, and she just does cat stuff nearly all the time, almost getting herself killed. There's another really childlike character that gets introduced early on. Some people might not like them at first, but they really grow on you and become a fan favorite pretty easily. Like I said, I won't spoil it, but I think you will like the character, other than Carl, that I'm talking about if you check it out. Besides Carl and the other, 800 million crawlers, Carl isn't alone, even though he wouldn't be alone with all those people. He has a guide. He has a dungeon guide named Mordecai who can help out when Carl goes into a safe room where he can't be attacked, and the guy can tell him a lot about the dungeon and its history, but he can't say too much because the game masters, those guys up there, are always listening. And they don't want the crawlers to know too much. It makes for bad TV if the characters in the action survival story knows what's coming up. So Mordecai can't say too much, but he's a very fun and interesting character. And he's one of the few characters who is actually someone that's real inside the dungeon. Most of the characters that Carl and his allies will meet will be NPCs, or non-playable characters if you're not familiar with that term. Basically people created specifically for the dungeon. Just like in video games, there'll be the people like in Grand Theft Auto that are just walking down the street that just talk shit. Like you can't play them, but they exist and they have their own stories or lives or whatever. But in Dungeon Crawler Crawl, they never really lived. And at the end of the dungeon crawl, their memories are all wiped and they're reprogrammed to have different stories the next time the Carl I fucked that up. Many of the characters Carl and his allies will meet will be NPCs, or non-playable characters. Basically, people created specifically for the dungeon. They never really lived at all, and at the end of each dungeon crawl, fucking, I'm not editing this shit out, man. I done messed this line up 3 times. At the end of each dungeon crawl, I keep saying Carl, their memories are wiped out, and then they're reprogrammed to have different stories the next time the crawl happens. Crawl and Carl, how dare this guy name this story? Crawler Carl, holy shit. Mordecai tells this to Carl about the NPCs and how they, get reprogrammed every time. He tells him pretty early on after he sees some pretty horrifying things with the NPCs, and Mordecai warns him not to get too attached. Don't get too involved because it's all part of the show. He can waste his time trying to help someone sprung out on meth now, but it'll be a waste of time because the next time that NPC might be addicted to crack, or they might be a boss monster, or they might be like a cult leader or something. It's like they're always going to have a different story, and Carl does not like that. It's fucked up. He feels like they're playing with lives, and at some point he feels like it might be, worse than what they're doing to him and the other humans, because it's like, damn, you're molding these people and making them do these things and then just completely like wiping them out and giving them whole different stories. Like these people are getting like savagely murdered. Like even an NPC that he kills, like he might blow their head off, but they're property of the Born Corporation. So like in the next crawl, they'll get like revived with a whole different storyline and not know of the tragic things that happen to them. The last major character I want to talk about is the AI, the one that awards the achievements, gives warnings, and loot boxes. When characters do something, they will get achievements for them, like in the video game. And the AI voice will pop up and give an insanely wacky description of what they did, what they got in return, or what will give. It will give a breakdown of a boss or enemy they faced. The AI grows and gets much better over time, but they will often taunt the characters and let them know how fucked up how fucked up the situation is they're in, and it'll go sometimes it'll go down a long rabbit hole ranting for like 7 minutes on the lore of a certain mob or like secret societies. One of my favorite parts in the story is about how it's super self-aware. There's been many times where I'm like reading or listening to it and I think something, or a character says something and then it immediately gets addressed. Like there's this one moment where Carl is fighting a monster and the AI is describing the monster, giving his backstory, and he goes on for like 10 minutes. He's like, this thing, it used to raid villages and fucking murder toddlers, but then it fucking got converted and now it's a priest and it thinks that like it can one day bring back the sun god and do it. It rambles on. It goes on for like 10 minutes. And when it's done, Carl is like, yo, what the actual fuck? Can they make these descriptions shorter? Like what? I'm like fighting for my life out here. And then like the next time the AI pops up and it needs to talk, instead of giving its usual descriptive warning, it responds and it says something like, since Carl thinks that I talk too much, how about this? Here's a drunken rattleskunk demon. That's it. No more info for you. Fuck you and good luck. And then it's like, holy shit, well, can I get a little more info? Can I know something? Because usually it's like, it gives a little hint. It'll tell you that like this demon, likes to get drunk or something, and he'll look around the room and see that like there's beer bottles and stuff, and he'll like, I don't know, set the beer on fire to piss it off, or maybe like try and get it drunk so it passes out. It'll like give hints. There's always hints for the boss fights. And like when this happens, Carl pisses off the AI and it's like, fuck you, I'm not telling you how to do this fight. Good luck, shithead. There's also a time where Carl and his friends are like on a plane. And remember I said he was a Coast Guard, but he's like on this plane shouting out instructions and commands to them using boat jargon, saying stuff like get to the port or the deck or whatever. And I personally was like, okay, bro, what the hell? And then almost immediately someone goes, Carl, can you fucking speak English? This isn't a boat, bro. Nobody knows what any of that shit is. And I was just like, whoa. I'm like, that's what my thoughts. There's another time where the story had just finished wrapping up a super insanely action-packed plot point and started to slow down a little bit, and then suddenly out of nowhere we're facing like 7 bosses at a time. Boom, out of nowhere. AI goes, you probably thought this was gonna be a filler arc, didn't you, dumbass? We don't do that shit over here. And then just all hell breaks loose, like 20v1 out of nowhere, just craziness, just madness everywhere. I don't know who all this might appeal to, but Dungeon Crawler Carl, while it does have its crazy wacky moments and it's full of action, it also has its emotional moments. No, it's not a constant cry fest, and there have been a few moments where I was unable to keep the tears back, especially in one moment that happens later, like in book 5 or 6, where a childlike character finally says how they've been feeling for a long time. I was listening to the audiobook while driving with my GPS on, going somewhere I had never been before. I was like checking out a house or something for my wife, and I'm like driving, got my phone, I'm like listening, I got the GPS playing, but I got the book and I'm just like driving, and then just suddenly like I got hit with the emotions and I was like, whoa. GPS is like, you in 5 miles, keep it. Then like the characters just like laying it or think like they're just going and saying stuff, and I was just like, whoa, man, I couldn't see. It was like really emotional and powerful. It was just, I couldn't see. I was like, I'm about to get in a car crash, man. Like I was crying so much for like what was happening. So it's like, there aren't many emotional moments, but the ones that are there are very powerful. And the story is, like I said, it's filled with a lot of fun and exciting moments and insane plot twists that you just won't be able to predict. In one of the books, the characters are like in a desert and they arrive at a town that's guarded by these camel-like dudes. And he welcomes them to Hump Town because, of course, the camel town is called Hump Town for camels. But when he tells them, after they get into the town or whatever, he welcomes them and he's like, he makes them pay first. He's like, cash cash, grass, or ass or whatever. And Carl was like, oh, that's like that bumper sticker. He says something else, like he says like a camel version of it, like pleasure something or something. And Carl's like, that's the thing. So he like gives him some drugs or whatever, and the dude lets him go. But after that, the camel's like, go here to find the best ladies for the nightlife. And somebody's like, oh wait, I thought like you nightlife. And he's like, yeah, Camel Town's a brothel town. What else did you expect? Like he isn't a fucking camel. Like you see Hump Town, you see a sign that says Hump Town, and you think like, okay, humping, and then you see camels. It's like, oh yeah, camels humps, but then no, it's actually humping. It's a brothel town. There's a few times where crawlers are pulled out of the dungeon to go on talk shows and commercials and even conventions called like Crawl and Carl are beating my ass. But there's Crawl Con, like Comic Con, and for Carl it's pretty much always disgusting because he can now see the faces of the people forcing his planet to fight and kill each other in this dangerous dungeon for their pleasure, but he has to bite his lip or risk losing sponsors or the favor of his fans or the AI. And in this game, being entertaining is a key factor in staying alive. Every day in the dungeon, they play recaps for the crawlers to see, and also so they'll play the highlights of the previous day, and everyone can see other crawlers getting ripped up by monsters that they haven't faced yet, and they'll be like, oh shit, we got to look out for that thing, or what the hell was that killed those guys, or like if we know that they got like these floor traps that if you step on them, a fucking staircase will fall from the ceiling and crush you and shit like that. And so like they'll see stuff like that, or like other crawlers that might have been like helping, asking for help, they're actually scamming people and killing other crawlers. So they'll get a look into the personalities of other crawlers that they haven't met yet on these recaps, and it'll be like, okay, I gotta avoid this Lucy chick because she's fucking nuts and she's going around killing people, or this David dude seems like a cool guy, like I hope I run into him because he's powerful, he's got a lot of cool loot, and like he'd be a great asset for the team. So the recaps are really cool, and so are the TV shows. I love, one of my favorite parts is really when they go on the shows because they meet like these crazy like internet personalities and stuff. Like they meet this like Audette lady, and she's got this big personality, and she she's got an audience. The show is recorded in front of a live studio audience, and the fans are like interacting, and sometimes they'll be like, Carl, you suck, and other characters that go on the shows too, but people will like be saying, having their opinions and stuff, and Carl will sometimes step up. He'll stand up for himself and stand up for his planet, and talk shit back to these guys, and they sometimes won't like it. Some people will will think it's spunky, and it'll he'll get back to the dungeon and find out he's got a new sponsor, and it's like, yeah, you stood up, and we also hate the guys that run that show, or we hate the guys that that are trying to kill you, so we're going to sponsor you and help you because if you survive, it'll piss them off. It's really cool. I love the talk show moments. Dungeon Crawler Crawl is a fantastic series filled with laughs and hype moments. It's currently 7 books long, and I think each book is better than the last. None of them are bad. I will say that one of them can get pretty complicated due to the layout and structure of the dungeon floor, but even that book is still incredible. I'm only on book 6 myself right now, and the author apparently has a deal to go for about 10, but there's a possibility of more. I think we're definitely going to get more than 10 books based on where I am right now, but it's been a blast. Like I said, I highly recommend anyone considering the series to check out the audiobook. I think it's largely a superior option to just reading it the normal way. The way the voice work is done is top tier, and I just can't imagine voices like the AI in my head. There's another character that's like a frog, and they hit a ribbit every 20 seconds while talking, and when I'm listening to it, I'm just like, there's no way I would have been, this would have been as good in my head. It's apparently also getting a series, I don't know if it's going to be live action or animated, but it got greenlit for a series done by Seth MacFarlane. He's going to be heading it or whatever, the guy known for Family Guy. I don't know, like I said, if it's going to be live action or animated, but I hope they animate it, and only time will tell. My friends Tyrone, Ian, and Chris, got to get them a shout out because they've been talking about this series for years and trying to get me to check it out, and I never thought it was bad. Like I never was like, nah, that don't sound like my thing, but it just took me a while to get to it. And like I said, the audiobook is great, and I just constantly found myself making extra chores around the house or making more trips to the store, which pissed my wife off, to get an excuse to listen to it. If you want to read it the regular way, you can still do that, of course. I think it's all on Kindle for like a discounted price, but the Audible app lets you get a free trial, and you can get a free book each month, so you can try Dungeon Crawler Crawl 1 basically for free. This is not sponsored. They're not paying me for this shit. Nobody at Audible in charge of this will ever actually probably see this video. Anyway, can't stress the Audible version enough though. There are some things that I feel like you have to experience a certain way, and for most it's like, yeah, read the book or the manga, but every now and then there's a series that will get a perfect anime adaptation, and people will say that you should watch the show instead of reading it, like Shangri-La Frontier or Demon Slayer or Jujutsu Kaisen or whatever. The book is great, but the audiobook version is a much better experience in my opinion. Even though the video is running a bit longer than I wanted, and I probably started rambling at some point, there's still not enough that I can say about this story. I was supposed to be working on other videos, but I just could not focus with this story on my brain, and I had to stop everything I was doing to make this instead. If you made it to the end, you're a champion. Let me know down below what you thought, and if you're either going to check it out or have already checked it out, let me know that too. At the time of the recording, I have not peeped book 7 yet. I'll be starting this week, so don't spoil me if you're someone who's caught up, and that's going to be it for this one. For those who don't know, I'm normally a manga guy. I make videos talking about some of my favorite manga. Subscribe to the channel for that kind of content. If you're into it, hit the like button. And if you like podcasts, check out my manga podcast. It's called Panel Focus. We review 9 different manga each week when our schedules line up, and I'll drop a link for that in the description. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time, someone I hope to soon be a fellow crawler.